GST 2.0 has come into effect across the country today, marking a significant milestone in India's journey. The latest changes include rationalization of tax slabs, aiming at boosting consumption with giving more money in the hands of the consumers. However, as most acknowledge the positive impact these reforms are expected to bring, the political discourse around them has been usually political. Opposition parties are staking their claim, portraying the reforms as a legacy of their own earlier policy proposals and political struggles. They allege that the ruling government is simply taking credit for initiatives that were originally conceived during their tenure or under their influence. This has triggered a classic political tug-of-war. However, the finance minister, in an exclusive interview with Network 18, had actually divulged how the centre had led the Prime Minister's vision that laid the foundation for these changes nearly 8 months ago. So in the midst of this political volley, one must ask, who really deserves the credit for today's GST reforms or GST overall? That's the big question we'll take to our guest joining us in just a bit. But even as consumers welcome the reforms, the opposition isn't on board. Here are some of the contentions or criticisms that have been raised by the opposition leaders just today or in the run-up to this implementation. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has said the centre cannot claim credit. It is we who wrote about GST on insurance, in other words, about bringing down certain items further down the tax slabs. Congress MP Jairam Ramesh has gone one step further, saying changes are still inadequate and limited. And this is not a complete reform as the government may claim. Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson Priyanka Kakkar has gone on to say that first you broke the common person's back and now you're patting your own back as if you have achieved something historical. Also, there are of course the CPIM MP Santosh Kumar, who has called the entire reform some Hindutva economic policy that is a part of the Prime Minister's Jumla politics. While opposition continues to cast doubts, it was none other than Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman who, while speaking exclusively to News 18 Network's Editor-in-Chief Rahul Joshi, had revealed how for the first time in GST Council, it was the centre that pushed for this reform.
Like the way we did in the budget, respecting the middle class, respecting the taxpayer, respecting people who are really the ones out of their salaries giving the tax. We need to do something for the day-to-day indirect tax which falls on every Indian citizen in some way or the other. So this tax is something which touches the lives of every citizen, and therefore we need to be a lot more sensitive. So I went back with this comment, redid it, sharp focused it, and that's how this proposal came. And we, for the first time in GST's history, Council's history, the centre has come up with a proposal. Till now it used to be the group of ministers which consisted only of state ministers. Yes. Never has the centre been a part of any GOM. This is the first time, both in the case of the compensation cess, where the MOS Finance central government was the chair to decide how to handle the closure of the compensation cess, and a comprehensive proposal as regards GST being given by the central government.
So there you have it. It's the centre that moved the proposal for the very first time that has happened in the GST Council, which involves all states as well. Now, a major reason why opposition may claim credit for GST is because they say the idea was conceptualized during the UPA era, even if it could not bring it to table. But in fact, it was in 2000 under Atal Bihari Vajpayee that an empowered committee of state finance ministers was set up to look at this concept. It was in 2006 when UPA came to power. Then Finance Minister P. Chidambaram announced GST implementation by 2010. But in 2010, President Pranab Mukherjee announced delay in such an implementation. In 2011, the bill was introduced in Lok Sabha, referring it to the standing committee. But for 3 years, nothing happened. And in 2014, after the general elections, the Lok Sabha dissolution led to the lapse of that bill on GST introduction. Finally, the bill was reintroduced or passed in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in 2016, within 2 years of the Narendra Modi government coming to power, and the president gave it its assent. 2017, official nationwide rollout also took place of goods and services tax. Now, 2025 Prime Minister, remember, had announced these reforms on Independence Day. He had promised reduced rates before Diwali, and by September 22, 2025, that GST Council's 56th meeting approved the landmark reforms, and today those reforms have also come into effect. So it's not just about intention, it's also about how quickly can you roll out said reforms. With that, the big debate that's coming up is exactly this. Who can claim credit not just for GST 2.0 but for GST overall? Time to settle this debate finally. Exactly who should get credit for this?
Prime Minister did announce it from the Red Fort on Independence Day. But even about 8 months ago, he called me once and had a long talk about how GST can be, revamped, looked at, and only from one point of view.
ये जो नए स्लैब्स आए हैं जीएसटी के, ये कंज्यूमर के लिए एक बहुत ही अच्छा स्टेप है और हम ये मोदी गवर्नमेंट का बहुत शुक्रिया और धन्यवाद करते हैं।
आज जीएसटी जो छूट मिली है गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से, वो डेट देख के हम लोग आए हैं, क्योंकि अब से जो भारत सरकार की तरफ से जो छूट मिला है जीएसटी में, गाड़ी लेना अफोर्डेबल हो गया है। लोगों को अब गाड़ी लेने में सुविधाएं बढ़ गई हैं।
कौन सी गाड़ी ले रहे हो आप?
मुझे तो लेना है होंडा हॉर्नेट का 125 सीसी।
कितनी सस्ती पड़ी आपको?
ये पहले थी राउंड फिगर 1,31,000 के आसपास, अब है 1,22,000 के आसपास।
हकीकत ये रहेगी कि ग्राहकों को उसका लाभ मिलेगा, उसका कुछ फ़ायदा होगा, इससे निजी निवेश बढ़ेगा, ये सब सवाल उठते हैं। तो ये पूरा जीएसटी सुधार नहीं है, ये दूसरा अवतार नहीं है, ये 1.5वां अवतार है।
এবং আপনারা জানেন সেন্ট্রাল গভর্নমেন্টের এক পয়সাও এর জন্য খরচ হয়নি, সব টাকাটা গেছে রাজ্য সরকারের কোষাগার থেকে।
Bihar elections, this is nothing, just an eyewash, and these middle income groups and lower income groups were squeezed by this government during these years. Who introduced this scheme?
कांग्रेस की सरकार 30% से अधिक टैक्स लेती थी।
Let's go across to our guest joining us, Rohan Gupta, spokesperson of the BJP, Venugopal Swamy from the Congress party with us, Anmol Panwar is from the Aam Aadmi party. I'm also joined by Kailash Adhikari, political analyst. Venugopal Swamy, I begin with you. When the Congress today tries to suggest that this isn't a full reform, it isn't GST 2.0, or it tries to suggest that, the very Prime Minister today had once opposed, so therefore the credit doesn't go to the BJP for the vision of GST, it comes across as sour grapes. What is the need to criticize a reform that is there in black and white? It's on paper. It has happened in 2016, and the new 2.0 GST has also been rolled out already. It's not just in talk anymore.
Shivani ji, good evening. Good evening to all the panelists. Madam, before I go to GST, I will take 1 minute. See, in 2016, the Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji brought two major issues for this country. One is demonetization. Second is a most disastrous statute, that is a insolvency and bankruptcy code. Many Indians do not know about this. We being a corporate people, myself being a chartered accountant by profession, and financial professionals understand this particular act. Because of the IBC, the entrepreneur skills, the encouragement to the entrepreneurs has been completely killed. Today, most of the businessmen have become a deal makers, where the company will go to insolvency. Can I buy 100 rupees company for a 20 rupees? This is what this one disastrous act has been brought, by which I can give you entire statistics data, almost like 30 to 40 lakh crore economy being destroyed through this particular act. This is what
No,
unfortunately,
unfortunately, I have to focus onto the GST issue. The
Yes,
Congress
yes, ma'am.
party's
Let me-
line has been that this
Let
isn't
me-
a full reform, but we've also heard how the Congress party over the years has been saying, oh, the BJP government doesn't get credit for this. So who gets credit for it?
Madam,
Thinking about it and
madam, I will
talking
come to you.
about it doesn't
Shivani ji.
deserve credit, even if the
Shivani ji,
UPA did it.
Shivani ji, you give me, see, I am not an attractive speaker. I am a truth speaker. Okay. You please give me 2 minutes. Whatever I quote with the statistics. Okay. After this IBC code, the demonetization has been brought. I will not talk what disaster it is. I do not want to debate in this particular evening. Okay. Now coming to madam, GST. What is the motto of GST, madam, if you understand? It is a one nation, one tax, one market. Now, utterly the government has failed. If I am a business person, if I want to do in 31 states, I have to obtain 31 registrations. Where is the question of one nation, one tax and one market? The motto itself has been miserably failed, the first step of the GST.
Okay. But you should I don't understand where you're coming from. You're saying GST is bad or wrong in its current avatar, but you couldn't bring a GST which Congress somehow wants to take credit for. They keep reminding us that GST was first floated under the UPA era. So I'm confused. You want credit for GST or you don't want credit for GST?
Madam, let me tell you. I will answer your question very straight. See, Congress party believes to produce a baby, it takes 9 months. Modi ji believes to produce a baby takes 3 months. Or maybe in 3 days you want to produce a baby, which is not possible. When you try to produce a baby in 3 days or 3 months, naturally what happens, everybody can understand what I am trying to tell.
Interesting.
See, madam,
Interesting you say that. All right, let me take that to Rohan of the BJP. Interesting he says that because there are so many things. It's not just about GST. So many things that have been deliberated, that have been pondered upon, but didn't come into being. Aadhaar being one of those things under the UPA. But how much can you wait? I mean, he's giving me an analogy of the gestation period of a human baby. I'm not sure it translates quite literally. But from 2006, even if I take the history from 2006 under UPA till 2014, 8 years was not enough for GST. And yet Congress wants to today suggest that, oh, this government cannot claim credit for GST, which was a reform. Criticisms of current GST aside, my focus today is why do we still have this credit war over GST? Rohan.
Absolutely, Shivani. Nobody should take credit. Let the people of the country decide that who should be given credit. And you have rightly said, it is about the political intent. It is about the determination of government to implement any kind of reform. Rightly, for 8 years, Congress has opportunity to implement this bill and take credit. After your rule is over, some other government takes the credit, ensures that it has to be on fast track, implements it, and after a certain time passes on benefit to the common man. What is wrong in it? This is the first time in the history of India the government is sensitive enough to pass on all the benefits of the additional tax collections more than the projections to the people of this country. And why there is a credit war? I think this is not the time to take any credit. Let the people of this country decide. When groceries are reduced by 10%, all the overall essential common for common man, there is a reduction of 12 to 15%. Let the people of this country decide what is wrong. This is the government who have afflicted 25 crore people out of poverty in last 11 years and created a new middle class. Neo middle class, right? This is the government who wants to ensure that the middle class up to 12 lakh salary, there is no tax. And the benefit of these two things is going to percolate and our GDP is going to increase leaps and bounds. What is wrong in it? Our consumption has increased by 12%. So everything, there is a euphoria, there is a positivity. Let the people decide who should be given credit. But if you oppose each and everything, Shivani, your credibility as opposition gets lost.
No, that is going to be my next question. To the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson, it almost seems like the opposition is criticizing everything for the sake of criticism. This has been something that has been discussed for many, many years now. If you criticize even something that brings GST reforms and, restricts it to 3 slabs now versus what used to prevail, it just sounds like, the opposition is being a crybaby. What is there to criticize?
Good evening, Shivani ji. Shivani ji, any tax reforms which helps the common man of this country is welcome. But remember that in 2017, when this GST reform was introduced, the Modi government tom-tommed it as a revolutionary measure. But in reality, it turned out to be nothing but an economic assault, breaking the very backbone of the ordinary Indian citizens.
Did it?
For the last 8 years,
how
the
do
Indian
you,
citizen
how
has
do you
been
suggest,
crushed. Yes, yes, I'll give you facts. I'll give you facts. I'll give you facts. I'll give you facts. For the last 8 years, the common man has been crushed under the weight of tax terrorism. I'll give you data which reflects the loot and injustice of the central government. 50% of the Indians, the lower middle group of our country, they have paid 64% of the taxes.
That's not
the
true.
The other 40%,
no,
which
that's
we call
not
the
true.
so-called, let me tell you, these are hard facts.
No,
let me
sir,
tell you.
these numbers have been
the other
debunked.
40%, ma'am, let me complete. The other 40%, which we call the so-called middle class, they have contributed 33% in the total tax collection, and the top 10%, they have contributed only 3%. So imagine that the central government has collected a staggering 117 lakh crores from the poor and middle class of this country.
I am not going
And
by these numbers. Anmol, one second. I'm interrupting you. One second. I'm interrupting you only because I've heard these numbers go around, and I don't think these numbers have been, they've kind of stood the test of scrutiny, because there's been a lot of criticism and debunking of these figures that are floating around, that the bottom 90% is paying 97% of the taxes, what you're claiming. People have suggested that mathematically it is not possible.
And
so I don't know where these numbers are coming on without attribution to source.
To call itself well-wisher of a common man.
No, one second. First of all, these numbers, I'm sorry, I can't take them on record because they don't sound fine to me. So you're saying that nothing has helped the public in the last 7 years or since GST implementation, but this government keeps getting repeat mandates for doing nothing. What are you trying to say?
I have some questions for BJP spokesperson.
Yes.
I have some questions for BJP spokesperson. Can I? Yes. First, for last 8 years, why did you loot the poor and middle class of this country? Question number 2. The poor and middle class, which contributed 97% of the total 117 lakh crore of the tax collection, आपने उनकी कमर क्यों तोड़ी? Question number 3. When will you return the hard-earned money which you have looted from the poor and middle class of this country? Question number 4. Why did it take 8 years for you to realize that GST needs reform? And question number 5. The Punjab government, the central government still owes 50,000 crores to the Punjab government. When you introduced GST in 2017, you assured the state governments that in case of revenue loss, you will pay compensation cess. But since 2022, you have not paid cess to the Punjab government.
Okay.
वो पैसा कब देंगे?
Let him respond.
और अब इस लूट का जो है, अब इस लूट को जो है आप सेलिब्रेट करने की बजाय देश की जनता से माफी मांगेंगे या नहीं, ये मेरा आखिरी सवाल है।
रोहन,
देखिए, माफी तो दिल्ली की जनता ने आपसे मंगवा ली, आपने मांगी कि नहीं मांगी? आपका जो महल है, जो महल ने आपको हरवा दिया, फिर भी आपको हिम्मत चाहिए इस प्रकार के सवाल।
कह रही थी कि ईवीएम में चोरी करी है आप लोगों ने। दिल्ली की मुख्यमंत्री कह रही थी ईवीएम चोरी की है उन्होंने। मांग लीजिए माफी
की दाद देता हूं कि इतनी बड़ी हार होने की दिल्ली ने निकालने के बाद भी आपकी हिम्मत हो रही है मुझसे सवाल, फिर भी मैं जवाब दूंगा विनम्रता से, क्योंकि मेरा काम है। See, this is the government which is the classical model, how you are not managing your finance and offering something to people, and just you are putting your wada or your promises only on paper, and how people throw you out. The Delhi is the classic example. This is the government which could never materialize the revenues which were projected and ensured that Delhi goes in debt. And what has happened? You see, all the projects, they could not implement a single project, and they are asking question to us. This is the government which has been repeated year after year. This is BJP which gets repeated in different states. Why? Because people of this country, people of the states understand BJP believes in delivering whatever they promised. And this was the time.
You do vote chori.
Okay. No, one second, please don't bring vote chori here. Anmol, please don't digress from the topic. Don't bring vote chori here, and I don't want to go into the whatever twisted comment of the Delhi Chief Minister. Let's not do that, please. We'll discuss vote chori at an appropriate time. But Rohan, I do want to ask you a question before I go across to Kailash. There has been criticism that the government collected a lot of tax, even petroleum benefits wasn't passed on to the consumers, and now you're making it sound like, we are giving a dole to the consumers, whether it is direct tax cuts or indirect tax cuts via GST, when the government has actually collected a lot of tax from the middle class predominantly or the buyer class for the last 10 years.
Shivani, you need to understand, when Modi ji spoke yesterday, see, it was a vision. This is not a haphazard step that, okay, one day you get up and you say that, no, we are doing reforms. No, it's a strategic decision making. The first thing is he clearly gave example that first priority is to ensure in the last 11 years, we uplift 25 crore out of poverty. That is step number one. So by that step, that neo middle class was created, which has added to the overall middle class. Second step was, first step, middle class benefit up to 12 lakh salary, there is no income tax. It was a major step for middle class. So that is step number 2.
But that
step
came this year. That came this year. For the first 10 years, criticism is that you were minting money off the middle class.
No. That money, see, I have answered the question. That money has ensured that the people who are below poverty line, 25 crore people have been afflicted. Out of which money? Obviously that money. So that was my priority number 1. Roti, kapda और मकान. ये basic right है हमारे Indians को. उसको ensure करके गरीबी से उसको हमने बाहर निकाला कि जिससे उसको एक neo middle class का एक status मिले. Then step 2 comes. Okay, my 25 crore people have lifted out of poverty. Now my step is to support my middle class. That's what government did. 12 lakh income tax, it is a brave step. Now number 3, just give me 30 seconds, it will give you strategy. Now SMEs, which is the third front after the middle class, like maybe upper middle class also. Modi ji clearly told the consumption is going to increase multifold because of these GST reforms. And who will get benefited? Our SMEs will get benefited. The Swadeshi movement is step number 3. So Atmanirbhar Bharat ka jo strategy hai, Shivani, it has to start from the basic strata, which is poor, converting them to neo middle class, supporting middle class, converting them to upper class. This is the growth story of Viksit Bharat.
No, but Kailash, the problem for the opposition is exactly this. You can criticize whether it's been done rightly, wrongly, perfect can be the enemy of good. What the opposition cannot criticize is that at least things are happening in the 11 years of Modi government. You look at the paralysis that prevailed before this and the fact that there were reforms that were talked about for many years, even decades. Infrastructural projects that were announced in the 1960s, 70s that weren't fulfilled till Narendra Modi came to power. You can't take that away from him. You can't just say we thought about it, we talked about it. You have to show whether you were able to implement it.
Absolutely, Shivani. The major thing in government or governance is execution. If you aren't able to execute, then आप अपने दिमाग में कितने भी ख्याली पुलाव बना लो, उसका कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. This government after 2014 has actually executed all that they have promised. Like Honorable Prime Minister said that, the GST 2.0 will push up the India's growth story. We are celebrating this week as a GST Bachat week, wherein naturally the middle class, the youth, the farmers, the women, the traders, as well as all the shopkeepers will benefit from this. We have heard, and on your broadcast network, how the Aam Aadmi of this country feels with this GST Bachat, because items of daily essentials, items which are, even if they are not categorized as daily essentials, but items which are a part of our everyday living, be it affordable cars or be it any affordable
even aspirational items will become more affordable.
Aspirational items as well, and here you climb up the aspirational pyramid. If you're here, then you aspire to go up only when it is you have a dispensable income, and the government has best taken efforts in the two-pronged manner. First, the income tax bill during the budget session, wherein up to 12 lakhs was freed up, so that there is more dispensable income in hand of the people, so that their consumption increases, their spending pattern improves, and when consumption increases, the growth story of the country increases, because that money is coming into the system. We must understand this as a part of the economics. Secondly, now with this GST 2.0, when the items have been, the MRP will now come down because the GST has come down, and most of the big conglomerates, the FMCG conglomerates or the automobile conglomerates, they have taken an oath and they have come on record in saying that we will pass on the benefit to the consumers. As well as the Minister of Commerce and Industry took, and he came out in front of a public conference and said that he has had a word with all the major corporates and they are passing this on. And I will take, just because I'm speaking the last, Shivani, I'll take more 1 minute of yours to address one point that the Congress spokesperson posed, which I completely disagree, is about the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. One of the most landmark judgments of the recent times. Congress used to work on phone banking. You know, the gamut of just bartering loan as a remedy was happening during the Congress regime, and that had turned into chronic NPA issues for the Indian banking system. It is only the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code which provided an exit for the bankers. If your enterprise is sick, get it into the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. You will have an investor coming in. The larger part of the old thing gets freed up, and it has led to a monumental amount of recovery for the banks otherwise, which could not have come into the system.
No.
This is not being misused, but this is one of the most landmark, and my friend at BJP will agree, this is one of the most landmark financial system. And if you look at the data, which time and again the Ministry of Finance has given out into the parliament, that this has improved the health of the banking sector.
Can I just come in? Venugopalji, I'm afraid I cannot discuss IBC today. Your points noted, Kailash's points noted. It's a debate for another day, even if it's at all a debate pending. I think the debate was settled on this. But my final question to you, Venugopalji, on the subject today, my final question to you, you know, Jairam Ramesh said we'll have to wait and see if consumers get the benefit of the new GST slabs. Look at what the government's intent was. Even as the GST reform was to be implemented today, it already told all industry members that you have to pass on and we are monitoring you. Now, this is intent. You're criticizing, and all of this criticism ki dekhte hain, we'll see what happens. You know, this is not cutting ice with the voters. On top of it, delivery of Narendra Modi, the pace of delivery, even if you can criticize the quality at some times, the pace of delivery you can't take away from the Modi government.
Madam, let me tell you very, very simple example. Okay. 2014, the cement prices were 3,500 rupees per ton. Today, the cement price is 6,000 to 6,500 rupees. Today, the ton price. See, two things they are claiming. What they are trying to claim, 1 lakh crore, GST is becoming 2 lakh crore. How it has to be increased? In the place of 1 ton, you have to produce 2 ton at the rate 3,000 rupees, 3,500 rupees, so that you are increasing the production. Now, what happened in our case, the increase of the GST has happened only because of the price hike. 100 rupees material has become 150 rupees or 180 rupees. On that, when you calculate the tax, automatically there is an increased tax will come.
Okay. I have limited time. I got your point. I have limited time. I'll allow Rohan to respond to this. That if you look at the prices, you may claim inflation is low, but if you look at the prices of these items versus 10 years ago, they are still much, much higher. Rohan, very quickly, please.
Shivani, again, when you talk about numbers, you have to justify argument through numbers. Today, inflation is 1.58% and historically lowest. See the UP area, what was the range of inflation? 9% to 14%. That was the range. We are talking about 1.58%. These are not my numbers. These are RBI numbers. You see the interest rates, you see the bank rates. Everything is going down. So obviously the inflation will go down. And that's why the real GDP growth is higher. So I think, Shivani, on all counts, the strategy of Modi ji and this government is a long term to ensure that inflation is at the minimum, to ensure that there is more money now in hands of the middle class or neo middle class, which indirectly increases our consumption. And that's why Ashwini Vaishnav ji has told that this will result into increase of 20 lakh crores as far as GDP is concerned.
We'll wait and see.
So that
but the point today is only this. At least the government has done something in 2017 and in 2025. We aren't living in that era where nothing was happening, only discussions were happening or excuses were being made for why something cannot be done. I mean, let's not forget that a former finance minister of this country talked about how digital payments will not work in this country, right? Certainly, we're not living in that era, and we can't discount the fact that we've come a long way from that. So I don't understand where the opposition comes from when it tries to take credit for something it didn't deliver. Aadhaar is one example and GST is one example, and then there are of course infrastructure projects, particularly on the Northeast. The Prime Minister highlighted the Northeast today. But I'll leave it at that. I do thank our guests for joining us.